This group of geniuses are racking their brains, cracking a game. They're writing at the top of their lungs, calculating like mad. But suddenly, at the crack of dawn, they've lost again. All their efforts have been in vain. What they were trying so hard to crack, it was a top war code. Enigma. 50 rotors, 10 wires. A total of 1,590 billion code combinations, claimed to be impossible to decipher. With this cipher system, the German Nazis were victorious and unstoppable. To stop the Nazis from deciphering Enigma, Britain's MI6 secretly called in 6 super geniuses. And he was one of them, the genius mathematician Turing. Other geniuses were already working feverishly to decipher it. Turing, however, spent all his time fooling around. If humans can't crack it, then let's leave it to the machines. Turing wanted to design a special machine to decipher Enigma. That's a load of
irascible genius routine.
You're not afraid to pull your hair out. The geniuses were disdainful. No one takes him seriously. He may be a genius. He's a genius, but he's got a low EQ. He asks the leader for £100,000. When he heard that, he thought he was crazy. 100,000 to build a broken machine. He didn't even think about it and said no. Well, since you won't approve it, I'll go to your leader. And who was the leader's leader? Prime Minister Churchill. This eccentric fellow did just that. Churchill not only approved Turing's application, he appointed him to head the deciphering team. The first thing Turing did on taking up his post, fired 2 of his useless colleagues. Now the momentum was enough, but there were not enough people. Turing had to recruit his own staff. He published a crossword puzzle in the newspaper. No profession, no origin. Whoever could solve it in 10 minutes. In the end, 23 people managed to solve the game. Then came the retest, another crossword puzzle, and this time, they were the only 2 to pass. They filled in the gaps from the previous round. This pretty girl was Joan, in just 5 minutes and 34 seconds, faster than Turing's 8 minutes. She was just as gifted as Turing, but with a much higher emotional intelligence than Turing. She saw Turing's problems as soon as she started. She was too proud of her talent and too socially awkward. She told Turing, no matter how smart you are, Enigma is smarter than you. To crack Enigma, you have to use all the help you can get. Turing took Joan's advice. The next day he gave each of them an apple. He managed to ease the relationship with his colleagues, and it worked like a charm. Within 2 days, his colleagues had devised a plan to make the machine run faster, a full 500 times faster. A huge digital computer was built. But then, Turing's predictions were far exceeded. Turing machine. His intention was not only to crack Enigma, he also wanted to use it to calculate large amounts of data quickly, to use the data to determine what to do next. Unfortunately, he was wrong. The complexity of Enigma was far underestimated. 1,590 billion code combinations. The Turing machine ran for days, but it didn't work out. It was still too slow to crack. The leader, who had long been annoyed with Turing, finally, they couldn't resist. A large group of people broke down the door and forced the machine to shut down. Turing was trembling with anger. He couldn't say a word. Just as Turing was about to be taken, the genius colleagues stormed in. They threatened to kill them too if they touched Turing. You know, at the time, they were the best geniuses in Britain. Without them, there was no hope for world.
That's beyond belief.
The leaders were furious. They had to give in. He promised to give them 1 more month. If they still can't do it in a month, they'd all be out of here. Turing's head was spinning. Joan had another problem. She's 25 and single and unmarried. Her parents want her to quit her job, go home and find a man to marry. Turing can't live without Joan. To keep Joan, he took a piece of wire out of his pocket, wrapped it around his hand a few times. Then he got down on one knee and asked Joan to marry him. What Turing didn't expect was his engagement party with Joan. It helped him crack Enigma. This woman was an eavesdropper. She listened to Nazi radio. In conversation, she overheard her mention that the Nazis had some personal habits. They had some personal habits. For example, each message would begin with a word, a lighter word, but it was an instant inspiration for Turing. He suddenly realized that he was going in the wrong direction. The Turing machine didn't need to retrieve all the settings. It only needed to retrieve a few words that had been deciphered. The 1,590 billion combinations of codes. That's all it would take. Like the phrase Heil Hitler. Just insert the corresponding letter into the Turing machine and start the Turing machine in a matter of minutes. All the settings using this as a key can be retrieved. All you have to do is enter the intercepted English code into the machine. The intelligence could be deciphered instantly. Nazi naval ship Jaguar, heading 53 degrees 24 minutes north, 1 degree west. Enigma cracked. Who would have thought that a Heil Hitler? Enigma, which was said to be impossible to decipher. It's been breached. He defeated the machine. He deciphered the secret intelligence of the German Nazis. In half an hour, the Nazis were about to attack a British convoy. A member of the team was excited to report to his superiors, but Turing rushed to stop.
That's enough! That's enough!
Stop, you! You bet. Toxic the
Let the
convoy.
Nazis attack the fleet. Once the Nazis are intercepted, the Nazis will know that Enigma has been broken, and then Enigma will be reworked. All that work will be for nothing. The information that the Turing machine has decoded must be used in the most critical battles. War is cruel. To win the whole war, the people on board had to die. More difficult than breaking Enigma was secrecy. Turing approached the chief of MI6. He told him to keep the Enigma cracked. Turing would analyze the data. Turing analyzed the data and developed a strategy. Make sure the Nazis don't know. To win the war with the least amount of action. For the next 2 years, the team of geniuses kept deciphering information. Every day they made frantic calculations, deciding who would live and who would die. Stalingrad, Adenauer, the Normandy landings. Without the information they provided, these great battles in the history of the Second World War, none of them would have been possible. No one would have known. That shaped the entire war effort. Was a group of 6 crossword enthusiasts gathered in a small village in southern England. 6 crossword enthusiasts. Their names are unknown, but they were the unsung heroes of the war. The Second World War was won. Everyone was cheering and celebrating. But this group of geniuses was disbanded. The officer told them to destroy the machines and burn everything, to keep it a secret from the world forever. The war was over. But there's more to come. The world must not know that Enigma has been deciphered. They'll have to be the unsung heroes. No one will ever know what they have done. An unheralded man accomplished what no one else could, but to a tragic end. In 1952, Turing was arrested for personal problems, convicted of gross indecency, sentenced to hormone injections, also known as chemical castration. 2 years later, Turing, unable to cope with the torture, with a mouthful of poisoned apple, and ended his life. At the age of 41, Turing's story was kept under wraps for over 50 years, until 2009. The British Prime Minister finally issued an apology. In 2013, the Queen granted a royal pardon to send this great man into tribute. Who says standing in the light is a hero? No matter how many years have passed since then, a hero should never be forgotten, and they are not destined to be forgotten.